Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do the stretch and stipple. Now that you've seen some of the techniques of painting wise, because I used a cream base since it's a bit easier to blend with, I'm just going to go ahead and pull some of that off in the key areas where I'm going to be stretch and stippling. That way we get a better adhere to the skin. So this is just a regular micellar water. That'll help to pull everything off real easily. For this, you don't need to go in full blown with your Super Solve because we just didn't use anything that aggressive yet. It's just cream based at this point. So get a nice clean, especially knowing we're gonna do some prosthetics under the eyes also, some eye bags and a little bit of some cheek jowls. So making sure to take care in those areas extra. Close your eyes for me. And now, because this micellar water isn't going to remove all of the Skin Illustrator, we get a little bit of a little bonus, a little bit extra on the eye still left behind here, which will make it a little bit easier once we go back into painting here. But now that we've shown you the painting, now you know where to place things. Once we do the stretch and stipple, we'll be able to get an easier, faster paint going. Close your eyes for me. So when you start a stretch and stipple, again, it is a latex-based paint, it's a latex-based product. So making sure you double and triple check that there's no latex allergy before you start is huge. We already checked and she's completely fine. She has no latex allergy, so we're ready to go. Now just taking a little bit of 70% alcohol on a cotton pad. You just want to make sure that there's no leftover oil on the face. So if there's any leftover oil, again, the oil will break down the latex. So just give a really quick swipe. You don't want to be, by any means damaging their skin with too much alcohol, but a tiny, quick sweep of it will make a big difference when you're adhering it. And we are going to put some on the neck as well, so make sure you get that area super clean. And then you want to make sure it's nice and dry before you get started. So the first thing we're going to do is get our stuff prepped that we're going to use for it. So to do the stretch and stipple, you need some no color powder, a brush, latex-free sponges, and the wrinkle stipple. So this wrinkle stipple that we're using, if you buy it, it's by a brand called WM Creations, and they have 3 different levels. This one that we have is the B, so they have an A, B, and a C, and that's just dependent on what level of aging you're going to get from it. A is the lightest, B is the middle, C is the highest. So you can pick from this company specifically what level you want to go to. So we have B, which is the median level. You can build up a couple layers of this, or you can just keep it as one for a median level. If you're doing the lighter one, you're going to get a more natural looking age and more minimal looking age. Or conversely, if you do the C level, you get more aggressive level of age. Now this one has the different levels to it, but not all the brands that you buy it from have a level to it. I know, for example, one of the more popular brands that you'll find more readily available is Ben Nye. And while the wrinkle stipple is good, there's only one level to the aging. So you can't really customize it too much to how you want it to be. And there's nothing you can use to really thin this out. You don't want to try and add alcohols or things like that because it's going to change the chemical compound. So I think if you're going to be doing the stipple, it's better to get something like this that's going to be more controlled of how you do it. There is another product on the market by a brand called Bluebird, and it's their Old Age is what it's called. Now that is a very pricey product, but it is worth every penny of it. That's something that is, something that once you're familiar with the technique of how to do it, you want to graduate to. But like I said, it is very pricey for a reason. So it's better to practice with the things that are a little bit more affordable until you get the placement right, things like that, and then graduate up to the Bluebird. But the Bluebird is kind of like the top of the top in the industry at the moment. So what we're going to do for this, When you open it, you do want to make sure that this stays very tightly closed in your kit. If air hits it, it will cure it. So it's super liquidy, as you can see, and you just want to take something disposable and give it a little stir. Because it's chemical, it sits and it separates. So give it a little bit of a stir before you go in. That way you know you're getting the pure version of it. And then you're gonna be working little bits at a time. So I'm gonna go through quite a few disposable cups here because it's gonna dry and latex sticks to latex. So that's why today is more important than any other day to use a latex-free sponge. If we use a sponge that had latex in it, and we went to do this wrinkle stipple, the sponge is going to stick to the product and it's gonna completely change how we do it. It's gonna stick to the product and peel it right off of the face. So you're gonna be constantly battling the latex on there. We're also gonna be going through a lot of sponges because of that fact, because you have to use one at a time. Once it starts to dry, which it dries very quickly, once it starts to dry, it's gonna stick to any other latex that's around it and pull it right off. So there's a real balancing act with it. But having a lot of sponges available is the key to getting a really beautiful finish to it. So what you want to do is just pour some of this in a little cup and then close this back up. Now make sure you clean the sides of it off. Otherwise, if you try and close it and there's latex still sitting on the sides of it, it's going to make it pretty impossible to pull back off. Latex is a real finicky product to work with. And also a good word to the wise, if you get latex on your clothing, it will never come out of your clothing. So be careful when you're opening it. You don't want to shake it also, that's another thing. You want to stir it. If you shake it, you create air bubbles in it. And then when you go to do the makeup, you have air bubbles in the makeup. So don't shake it, even though it's tempting because it is liquidy. Don't give it a shake, just give it a stir very gently to mix everything around before you get started. So we also have our hair dryer ready to go. Now this wrinkle stipple is much easier to do with an assistant. So when you have an assistant, they're gonna be the one that's going to be holding the face because that's what we're gonna do is actually hold the face, stipple product on, hit it with a hair dryer, powder it, and then if we're doing another layer, we would do another layer before we powder, and then move on from there. But the face has to be held completely tight until you get to the powder point. Once you've powdered the area, then you can let go. Because, again, latex sticks to latex. So, for example, if we're working in this area, we're gonna stretch the skin out that way, stipple some latex down, dry it, stipple some more latex down, dry it, put some powder on. Then when we let go, the skin contracts naturally where it's meant to go. So it's giving a very natural wrinkle appearance. If, however, we hold the skin tight here, we put the latex and dry it and we don't powder it, but we let go, the latex is gonna roll into itself and stick to itself because the powder wasn't there to give it the barrier. So make sure you don't let go of an area of the face, and that's how we're gonna be working is in different parts of the face. Don't let go of that area of the face until you've powdered it, otherwise you have to take the whole thing off and start again. So very finicky, a lot of challenges here today. So that's why it's helpful to have an assistant because they can be the person that's just holding the entire time until you say, okay, it's safe to let go. Then they can let go. You kind of gotta be like an octopus when you're doing this, especially if you're doing it alone. You just kind of have to pay attention to a lot of things. In certain cases, like this one, we're doing more of like a medium level, so we're not gonna do too much latex, not too many layers to where they really have to be held for an extreme amount of time. So it'll be a bit easier to do solo on this one. And I've done it solo plenty of times. It's just one of those things that it's easier with a friend. So what we're gonna do is stretch different parts of the face. So for example, when we're in the forehead area, we're gonna lift the forehead like that, separate it, stipple some latex in, hit it with the hair dryer, do another layer if we want, and then let go after we've powdered. The eyes are gonna be held like that. The cheek is gonna be pulled this way so you can stipple around here, and then when it lets go, it contracts in that direction. The mouth, same thing. You're gonna hold it out there. Think of when you're younger and there's more fat and collagen and, you know, all that kind of muscle in the face, it's more tight. It's kind of pulled out more flat. So as you age, everything kind of starts to sink and go down. So that's how you want to hold the face, and that's how you want to hold it. Again, gravity affects things. So gravity, if you think everything's going to be weighing down from gravity, like here, if you hold it open, when you stipple and you let go, it gives the effect of gravity hitting the top of the face. Same thing here. If you hold it like that versus holding it like that, you wouldn't want to hold the eye like that because the eye doesn't wrinkle in that direction. A little bit, maybe, from constantly, you know, if you're wiping your eyes and pulling a little bit, you might get some. But the majority, especially if you're doing the under area, is going to be pulled open like that. Close your eyes for me. Same with the eye. When you're doing the eye area, you want to pull up and out slightly, but you don't want to just drag the entire eye out. That way, when you lift up, you stipple it. When it lets go, it contracts in the natural position. So think of how you're holding it and where you're holding it and why you're holding it there. If you have clips, it's important to get the hair out of the face. That way you don't get latex into the hair. As long as it's there to get started. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do to start our stretch and stipple is just take a thin layer of latex onto the latex-free sponge. And then close your eyes for me. I like to have them close their eyes when I'm working around anywhere on the forehead or the eye area, just in case anything should fall. And you see I'm lifting up. I'm gonna lightly stipple around. Now you want these edges to look really thin. You don't want there to be a really harsh distinction between where this starts and where it stops. And you also don't want to get this into the hair. So keep that in mind. You don't want to get this in the hair or in the eyebrows. Just lightly stipple it around. And it will dry very fast, again, because it is a thin latex. So you might have to use different sides of the sponge. Like as it dries quickly, you're gonna have to work with it. You'll notice it's quite the challenge if once it starts to dry on this sponge, like I said, it will lift the corners up. And the only way to fix that is to take it off and start again. So we could hit it with the hairdryer right now, but I can see that it's pretty dry at this point. Because I only did a thin layer, it's not gonna be that aggressive of a dry time. When you use other products too, it'll take longer to dry because the latex will be thicker. But because this one is made to be a minimal level, you don't have to wait as long with this one. But what I'm gonna do is one more layer with a clean sponge. You can see how it's hard, you're like an octopus. Get a clean sponge, a little bit more latex, and you're going to stipple again in a similar area. You don't have to do the exact same area if you don't want to. You can, you know, focus more of it maybe on the center or maybe on the sides like this. Or you can do all over the exact same. But it is important to know how many layers you've done on each part of the face so everywhere else can match. So we're on layer 2. That means anywhere else on the face we do this wrinkle stipple, we're also doing 2 layers of paint. That way it's not 1 layer of latex up here, 3 over there, 4 over there. You want it to blend and match, and you don't want it to be different than anywhere else because that just doesn't make sense like that. So keep in mind how many layers you've done and where you stop at. I'm just gonna fan this to dry it. At this level, it doesn't need the hairdryer to dry down, but what I am gonna do is take a powder brush. While we're still holding, remember, take some no color powder and lightly tap around in here. You want to tap it, you don't really want to sweep it onto the face until you've tapped powder in every area. And you'll be able to see, the latex is very shiny, so you'll be able to see where it is or isn't. And also you placed it there, so you know. Once you're done, then you can let go. Dust the excess powder off. And you will see that latex will hold on to that colored powder, which I'll show you how to paint around that later. But dust the excess powder off and then go ahead and open your eyes and just lift your forehead up and down a bunch. So after you've done the wrinkle stipple, when they actually move their face around like that, it makes the wrinkles come out more. So having them move their face around is a really good thing because it becomes more noticeable and more intense. Now, you can see some of it come through. You definitely see some texture pulling in there. And that's a thing to note too, that the latex is going to add is texture to the skin. So if you think an easy way to change the skin type to make it look different is instead of being smooth and youthful and flat, it's going to have a little bit more texture to it as you age. So adding the latex not only gives the fake wrinkle, but it also gives some texture to the skin. So that's good for this top layer here. And as it warms up to the skin and as she moves a bit more, you'll see more wrinkles come out. You can already see them in some areas here up close. But we're going to move on to the next level. Now I'm going to go around the eyes a little bit with this. I'm not going to do the latex around this area because I have Pros-Aide transfers to use, and also the eye bag area I have Pros-Aide transfers to use for there. But where I am going to use the latex on the eyes is going to be on the top eyelid and a little bit around here for the crow's feet area. So go ahead, close your eyes for me. Again, same thing. I'm not going to go more than the 2 layers here because we started with 2, so we're staying with 2. And this is actually how I like to work with an age makeup, is from the top down. However, typically I will save the eyes for last if the person has sensitive eyes. Sometimes they just prefer that the eyes are last. But I do prefer to go from the top down. That way you know you're working in steps and it's going downwards from there. So with the eyes closed, you can lift up slightly and out a little bit. And be very careful that you don't get this onto the hair. You just kind of want to thin it out a little bit. So that's what I'm using the opposite side, the clean side of the sponges, is to thin it out slightly. While you're still holding, I'm using the opposite end of this sponge. Instead of grabbing a new one, it's a new side of it, so you can use the new side. Do a light second stipple on top. And don't forget about, don't make it so that it's only on the eyelid. Don't forget about this area up here, the whole brow bone area, because that gets aged also. Okay, now we wait for that to dry. The eyes, I always like to use a teeny tiny little brush. That way it's more comfortable and more precise with where it's being placed. Make sure you got all the shine down of the latex before you release. And then when you release, go ahead, open. Once they close and open, you can see it starts to get a little bit more texture. You can have them go ahead, squint your eyes and move around a bit. The wrinkles start to come out a bit more, but you do see that it naturally adds a heaviness to the eye there that will come out a bit more. Once we take down a little bit of the excess powder and start painting around it, you'll see it a bit more there. So now, next area we move on to are the crow's feet. So for this one, I'm gonna have her keep her eyes open, but I'm just gonna drag down sideways here and just lightly tap around. Again, kind of diffuse the edge of it so that it's not too harsh. And make sure too, you check in with your model. Make sure you're not pulling too hard. If they need a break, if they're feeling uncomfortable with it. It is not the most fun thing to have someone just pulling your face all around. So make sure they get their break if they need to. If they need a breather from you pulling on their face, give them the breather. So I'm only doing one layer on the crow's feet just because we're gonna add the eye bags. And I think that's going to be the focus for the under eye area. But if we decide we want more, we can add more. Even if you've already powdered, you can add another layer if you want to. It's not unheard of to do another layer after you've powdered. So say you've already done it and you look at it and you think, oh, you know, I really should have done an extra layer. Maybe I want one more. You can add another layer if you've already powdered. You just can't add another layer after you've painted and things like that, because then the paint will start to break down the latex depending on what you're using. But I like one little layer there because it tends to give some texture effect that I think plays a bit better than just having the aggressive crow's feet. And then we want to move over to the other side and do the same thing. It's helpful too if you have an assistant who's holding things for you, especially for areas like the eyes. They can hold both eyes at the same time. And then you can do both eyes at the same time, which can sometimes be helpful. That way you can just see it a little bit easier, and you can stand in the front and just get it going from the front so you see it all in one full swoop. It just depends on who you do or don't have available, or how you like to work. You may prefer to do one eye at a time. It depends. Just make sure you're holding it in the same direction. And also, if I didn't mention, wait until the latex is completely dry until you do the next layer. You'll know it's dry because it will be completely translucent. It kind of has a whitish haze before you get started when it's still wet, but once it dries, it's completely translucent and you don't see anything except shine. If there's any white left still, it's not dry and you need to wait another moment. That's where the hairdryer comes into play. Now again, the hairdryer can be very helpful, especially if you have a more aggressive and more full layer of latex to paint down. Like that Ben Nye, that one that I was talking about, is a pretty thick one, so that one takes a bit longer to dry than this one does. Because this one is a really thin layer, it dries pretty quickly with just a quick little fan. If you are doing the hairdryer, make sure it's on like a medium to cool setting. That way you're not burning the face. And also, the heat will affect the latex too. Same with extreme cold. You want to keep it away from extreme temperature conditions. So pretty median temperature is what you're looking for. While that's drying, you can get your powder ready. And make sure too, even though you kind of have to claw their head when you're doing this, make sure you're not pushing their neck all the way back and you're not snapping their neck, or, you know, just be very aware of where you're holding and how you're holding their head. Okay, open your eyes for me. Just a little bit under these crow's feet area. And it's going to extend back a little bit into the temples, but not too much. This is where if you had an assistant, asking them to hand you the hairdryer would come in handy. If you're moving around anyways and you don't have it right in front of your table. Once you see that it's almost ready, you can get your powder ready. And then you can powder down that area before you release it. Move back to our other side now. What we're going to do next is going to be the neck. Because remember, I have something for the under eye area and something for the jowls of the face. So we're going to go into the neck now. And what I'm going to ask my model to do is just tilt your head back a little bit. So this is how you want to position them for the neck, is you want to have them tilted back a bit so it pulls the skin of the neck taut. And now you want to work quickly in this because it is not a comfortable position for them to be in. You can kind of pull down a bit to help too, but focus this mostly on the middle of the neck area. Feeling okay? Mm-hmm. So you kind of go down that middle area. Before they put their head back, try and get as much done in one big sweep as you can. Because we know we're going to see a little bit over here, we want to make sure we get a little bit over here as well. This is a new sponge that I'm working with now. Don't forget about the sides. You don't want to just stop right there. You want to make sure that the look continues back a bit. And just down slightly. Now, since it's uncomfortable, to speed it up, we hit it with the hairdryer. Dries pretty quickly, and then we'll take our big powder brush, powder everything down really well. And then we can let her, once we're done with this, we can let her relax and the torture will be over for the time being. Just one more quick powder over here. Remember all the areas that you hit with that latex, because it dries pretty clear. It can be pretty hard to remember, so just remember all the different areas that you did hit with it. That way you can powder all the different areas. Okay, go ahead, come back in. See how this just adds that kind of like crepey neck texture? That will really help in adding the effect in. We're gonna add a little bit to the chin and the top of the lip also. This just adds a little bit more realism, so it's not only in select areas. I'm gonna have you with your mouth go like this. So kind of pulling like that and going down a little bit. Go ahead, relax your mouth. That'll add a little bit of texture and a little bit of something in there. Certain areas of the face are gonna have a little bit more. So like the forehead, the eye area tend to get a little bit more weathered quickly, and the neck also than these other areas. So what we're adding now is just light layers of texture, just to make the look more complete. So it's not only in pocket areas. If it's only in the pocket areas and you're forgetting about the look as a whole, then you kind of lose the effect there. So now for the lip, instead of having them go like that for the lip, what you're gonna do actually is kind of pull the top out this direction. And by the way, this can go onto the lip itself. So you can go on the lip a little bit if you want to add a little bit of dry texture, anything like that. It is safe to put on the lip area if you should decide to go that route. Keep holding it nice and tight here. And then again, have them move around their mouth in all different areas, shift it around a bit before you move on to the next. That way it starts to move things. Even the neck, you can turn back and forth. Just moving in the natural way that it will pull out more of the wrinkles there. And the longer it sits in too, the more it'll kind of pull a bit in. So now what I'm gonna do, because I do wanna add the prosthetics in, is I'm gonna add in our prosade transfers. And then we can continue painting everything else from there. So that's the stretch and stipple. If you were going to continue doing stretch and stipple everywhere and you weren't going to add in more prosade transfers or any sort of prosthetics, then you would definitely want to continue around the mouth here. You will want to continue a little bit under this part of the eye. You could do a little bit on the sides of the nose, top of the cheekbone, lightly, just to give a little bit of a texture so it's different than normal. But the areas that we're gonna focus on with the prosthetics are gonna be some under eye bags and then right along here in the sort of jowl line. So if you were doing full stretch and stipple, you would wanna make sure you do those areas also, and then those are the key points that you're gonna wanna hit to make it look good. Now, if you're doing stretch and stipple in those areas, for the under eye area, that's when you're gonna wanna pull like this way a bit, actually. Add a little bit in there, release so it gives that effect going there. If you're doing this area with stretch and stipple, you want to pull up in this direction, stipple it right along in there. When you release, it contracts everything together. So that's where you would hold and how you would hold the skin if you're continuing your look with just stretch and stipple. I'm going to go and prep the prosade transfers so we can add them onto the look here.